Mr. Anand Prabhudesai, co-founder Turtlemint, on the stage, please. Yes. Can we have Mr. Ram Gopal Subramani, COO Perfios, back on the stage, please? May I call upon Mr. Vivek Mandhata, Managing Director and Partner at Boston Consulting Group. And finally, may I call upon Mr. Arindam Ghosh, CTO, Star Union Dai-ichi Life. So we are at the IIA-BCG report launch, and before we get there, may I just invite Mr. Ram Gopal to come and speak a few words about the report.
Honestly, you got me by. Sure. No, actually, okay, if I'll get it, I'm probably as eager to hear as to what's there in the report. And I think this is the third series of the report that BCG is launching with IA. The last two reports were very informative about the whole ecosystem, right? I think, and the trend. So like I said sometime back also, right? A lot of evolution has happened in the industry over the last 3 years. And every year, the rate of evolution is just increasing. So I look forward to hear from Vivek and team what wonderful job they've done on this whole thing. Thanks.
All right, here it is. The report is unveiled. Thank you so much. And can I now ask upon Mr. Anand to kind of do a small discussion on the report, amongst other things. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. And good evening, everyone. We look forward to a very short discussion on the report itself. And I'd like to start first with Vivek from BCG. Congratulations on creating another fantastic report. I've had a chance to look through it a little bit before this panel. So would like to, I've been seeing this report from BCG for the last few years and would love to hear from you how things have changed in the InsurTech space over the last few years as you've been creating this industry report over the, giving out the status of the sort of the InsurTech ecosystem, so to speak. How have the changes and what are you seeing new this year?
I think there are two dimensions that I've seen evolve quite rapidly in the last 4 or 5 years, I would say, of the space. I think one was the role that InsurTechs are playing, right? I think when it began, it was quite on the fringes in some pockets, maybe a lot more in the space like distribution to try and, or in the space of tech solutions in pockets of the value chain where it all began, versus now we are at quite a mature space where even in the previous panel, there was a whole discussion around products and product co-creation and innovation where you're getting into the core of the insurance business as InsurTechs. And I think that sense of collaboration, and maybe you can add a lot more on that front, between the InsurTechs and insurers, I think that dynamic has strengthened over time. And I think insurers are also becoming mature about where they can partner and how they can leverage the InsurTech ecosystem. I think the journey has been phenomenal, but I still think we're still at the beginning of that journey. We have a long way to go, and I think as we go forward, I honestly think we will start blurring the lines. And the day will come when there's no difference between an insurer and an InsurTech, right? I think that's where we're all on the journey right now.
Anything interesting you've seen this year, which was new, especially on the underwriting side or on the claim side?
I think the products are getting very, very different. I think a lot of talk has happened around the claims automation, and we are seeing that journey start to play out in some of the insurers. I think with generative AI and newer things coming around the block, who knows where else it's going. But I think the claims side, we've seen a lot of momentum and talk around automation. Underwriting is still a space that's evolving, if you ask me. We haven't seen the full breadth of what can happen in the underwriting space. I think there's a lot to go on that one.
Arindam, would like to move to you and would love to understand what your digitization agenda is. And as we look at the theme of this report, which is insurance for all, what do you see as the opportunities from a technology standpoint? Talking about some of the newer things like AI, ML, and generative AI, and so on. What are you doing in that area? What are the things that you see as important drivers for your growth?
Thanks, Anand. In fact, I think right from the morning today, most of the speakers touched upon it somewhere in their kind of an overall agenda item. And interestingly, in Vivek's report also, it captured really succinctly, correct? So couple of things we see at the end of the day, which is the prioritization perspective. Starting from the BCG report, so if you see the overall InsurTech landscape or the ecosystem, there are 4 or 5 buckets. Typically one is your awareness. Second one, you'd be talking about wherein you are actually the product and kind of an innovative kind of a landscape on the product side. Third is more of an operational risk, which is claim, underwriting, the process automation, and those kind of stuff. And last, maybe the servicing aspect of it, correct? Now, and the distribution, of course, that's the 5th and most important. Now, if you see over the years, as the industry and the ecosystem evolves, lots of work has been gone into in distribution, underwriting, claim, which is your ops and ops risk ecosystem. Even the product side, we have seen of late, a lot of innovative things are happening. One area where, and from our company perspective also, we feel that something we need to do, and we would urge the InsurTech partners out here to kind of come up, is more of an awareness side, more of an shifting the needle from a push product to pull product, correct? I mean, and that is a kind of an side of, a single coin. If I am aware of it, I would be able to kind of take a more, decision on my own, correct? I need not to be convinced again and again and again. Now, that shift comes to Anand's question, how the generative AI or analytics, because at this end of the day, I need something, the millennial or even the people who are in my age, something which is tailor-made for me. Now, if I look at with the kind of an fintech space or the data and other stuff, there are lots of data. Someone in the last panel was talking about in the white space also. I need not to wait for, say, health stack or something of that sort, correct? Now, these initiatives can help me identify a create product with a manufacturer like us for that person. So contextualization, individualization of the product for a specific person, that would create the pool, okay? Now, from our perspective, as a manufacturer, I can assure you, can use this forum, that we are ready to experiment. We are ready to work with you to give you a product as per your requirement. Of course, that upside and downside can be shared upon. But the point is, the kind of the thought-provoking ideas or something we're trying to yet to kind of get it. Maybe the next round of change I would expect in this space. And that would really push us from the push to pull, and then only we call the customer is the king, he is using the journey, get it back. So it would be a kind of a more evolved ecosystem, which might be happening in Lentech or in mutual fund, correct? So that's one of the area I would say would be kind of evolving.
Sure, I think hit upon an important point that insurance needs to become pull. And one of the ways everybody talks about that could happen is through embedded insurance. Is there anything like that in life insurance called embedded life insurance, and anything you've seen that's interesting?
So to answer your question in the paucity of time, to answer is really no. I'm really struggling, correct? In fact, I was thinking that, and again, it's a kind of an open again to anyone partner. If you have any interesting idea, I can assure you we would be able to work with you to roll out a product in a month's time. That I can give you both from the product and technologist team perspective. But the point is, life insurance at that kind of an definition, you are buying something for your life. So it is not a kind of an hitting the button for something. People tried doing it. Something similar happened in Ola in our place, or Grab in Singapore. Something you are kind of on this thing. If you are really concise, make it really crisp for a certain period of time, which is again going in the realm of the accidental insurance, correct? Or there is a possibility of adverse selection. Those things are there, but at the same time, we are not having any comprehensive answer what you are asking. I'll be excited to work with any one of you out here to come to Anand's kind of question or solution to his question.
Sure. Thanks, Arindam. So I think Arindam touched upon a point which was about risk, right? And insurers are worried about taking on risk, and they need data to be able to make that decision. And Ram, coming to Perfios has worked a lot with data, doing data processing for the larger fintech ecosystem. What role do you see for data, and how could data be used more effectively in the insurance world as well? Any things that you may be working on as well would be interesting to understand.
See, obviously, he thought about slightly some time back on this part of it. See, the role of, the most cliched statement, right? Data is the new oil. Right. So, again, there is data, there is information, there is insights. If I look at it, and actually, interestingly, just before some time back, as you were talking about the awareness part of it and the penetration, right? If I look at just the first part of the data, in terms of penetration. We're talking about penetration at even through channel, right? Just the fact that the kind of data that we have today, we can identify industries, we can identify entities, right? Although the employed part of it is this thing, but then if you look at the split of employees and under the EPF and ESIC, correct? If you look at the part, that's a sizable enough pool, which itself does not have in life insurance cover or any kind of insurance product. So, just the fact is, given the public goods infrastructure which is there, basis that today there are solutions that gives you access to entities of different size, all the way from a proprietor. Okay, a shopkeeper can be a candidate for a GMC product, right? A small manufacturing plant could be as a business distribution of insurance product for them, but also for their employees, which can become an acquisition channel, right? Instantly, just before this, having a chat with the CTO of Total Life. But the part that we were talking about was, how do you create awareness and incentive? Because that is a part of it. I think the penetration today, there is more than enough information to drive the part. It requires, and most of it is, if I look at it, it's push data. It's not pull. Because one of the part is, we're talking about the part is, how much of the distribution is coming through banks, which is 50%, how much is coming through an agent. Why will an agent have an incentive to go and ask the customer to give us data through A? So just the profiling of businesses from there, creating different kinds of product proposition. I know oil rigs are not that much, but you look at logistic, you look at the various industries, right? Chemical plants, all those things. Now, in those, if we are able to create products tailored for that and do a outreach, I think that's a huge potential. And it has to be a push than a pull, and that's one part we can do as an industry.
Sure. So Ram, one part of what you're saying is now there are data sources that one can use to identify customers and also authenticate whether they are genuine customers and so on and so forth, right? Anything on the claims side in terms of using data to, identify fraud, other kinds of malpractices that
Sure.
you've seen?
See, I think we already talked about health claim, but I'll talk about the part on the general. I mean, as simple as this, your motor information. I mean, for vehicle details, right? You have vehicle details which are available from Vahan. Now, the part of linking that data with other sources are today possible, okay, which becomes a potential use case to look at it. I mean, as simple as this, if you think slightly more, think about fast tag data, right? Now, someone claims that the vehicle had an accident in, let's say, maybe on the Karjat. Okay. Now, most vehicles today have fast tag. Can I establish the fact is, was the vehicle even there, the toll plaza? Yeah. So that is a part of it. I mean, just the other part is again, in terms of your transit insurance. Okay. This comes into play. Whether the goods got delivered or not. Okay. Is there a corresponding GST invoice being accepted? So from that perspective, I think there is your e-way bill on transit. Every transit goods being transit of more than 50,000 rupees has a e-way bill. Okay. You can look at e-way bill as a mechanism to validate whether the goods got delivered. Someone claiming on basically a business claiming the fact is, I sent this one, I had a accident, I have loss of all my so much goods. Okay. One is a combination of something like a fast tag. The other is to say that whether the e-way bill was even generated. I mean, that's one just example. So like that, if you look at it technically, I think some of the things that has just happened wonderfully in India is the whole public goods infrastructure, which has come into play on the government sides, largely thanks to the whole RTI thing. There was obviously we don't realize the benefits of some of these legislations, but over a couple of decades now, the impact is seen. So that's where the opportunities are.
Sure. Thanks. Switching gears a little bit, Vivek, I wanted to talk about a couple of things, interesting ideas that you've highlighted in the report in terms of what's happening in the international market. One was the study on China, where they've been very successful in driving health insurance penetration to a large segment of the market. The other was Australia. And I felt like the underlying theme in both of these examples was simplicity of products. In India, I think a couple of years ago, Arogya Sanjeevani was, the regulations around that were put out, and products were also put out by insurers in terms of simplification of health insurance. But I think from my standpoint, really that experiment really hasn't succeeded thus far. So would love to hear from you in terms of contrasting between what the success has been in some of these other markets versus India, and why we've not been so successful maybe as Australia, for example.
I think one of the big challenges is the push versus pull problem and the awareness problem, right? I mean, the product simplification is definitely the right step for us to go toward. I think there's no two ways about it that the awareness problem can be partially solved only by simplifying things and making it easy for people to understand what they're getting into, right? And Arogya Sanjeevani was one such effort in that direction. I wouldn't completely rule it out yet as a failure, but I think it's still a one-size-fits-all simplification that happened, which is probably a oversimplification for a complex demographic like India, right? And that's where I think I would just call out the Australia example, which we've also quoted in the report. Now, they went into this tiering structure of gold, bronze, platinum, silver. 4 structures were created for different hospital brackets of what you want to pick in your insurance. And gold means something standard, irrespective of whether insurer A provides it, B provides it, C provides it, D provides it. But you still give a choice for the consumer as to what category of service are you subscribing for. But that category of service was standardized and simplified, right? It's almost like Mera Wala Blue, that Asian Paints did, right, long back, right? If you get to that kind of a space with insurance and say, yaar, mujhe neela insurance de do, ya mujhe peela insurance de do, right? If you simplify it that much, for someone who knows that if I take a peela insurance, I know this will get covered, boss. That's what I understand, right? And utna hi chahiye mujhe. I think our demographic that is today underinsured requires that level of simplification, but the journey is not easy, right? Therefore, I think we have to find that right balance of simplification and yet providing options for people of what they want to get covered, because there is a population who is today used to access and used to the service levels. So there's a demand also there, right? And it's not only in the urban and metro areas. I think the digital impact in the semi-urban and rural is higher in a lot of senses. The entitlement is a lot higher today in that segment of population. Therefore, we have to give them options with simplifications. That's how I would look at the journey. I think we will see many versions of Arogya Sanjeevani play out, and that's when we'll get to that real simplification.
Sure. Yeah, so simplification is important, but the other thing I feel today also with health insurance is the product is not very contextual because it's all about inpatient, right? And have you seen, do these countries, for example, provide outpatient reimbursements as well? And how's that shaping up outside of India?
I think that challenge is less about the willingness, more about the ability to control in our country, right? And I think that's where the data and that's where the public good infrastructure, which we are all waiting for to happen, which is the NHA and the registries that are being worked upon, will really start helping us. Because, see, it's not like the insurers don't want to cover OPD, right? There is a clear realization that OPD is required to be covered. But how do you solve for the biggest black hole of potential fraud, right? And the veracity of whether someone who's writing a prescription is genuinely a medical practitioner or not. That is the fundamental problem, first of all, right? And so therefore, I think the path we are on, we just have to be a little bit more patient with the registry creation process that's going on. Once that happens, already the ABA ID is in play, right, completely, and it's accessible to insurers today to start verifying and deduping customers, which itself is a big solve if you ask me for insurers today, right? Now, at least I am able to deduplicate the customer and identify whether they have something else, portfolio, etc. I think in that journey, we will be able to get to a good place where OPD gets solved. And when OPD becomes available, I think the push versus pull problem will partially get solved also in that sense.
Makes sense. And do you see that happening in the next 5 years?
Look, I think I would say one thing, right? India has surprised us on the public goods side, right? The pace at which we had seen Aadhaar pick up versus the pace at which UPI is picked up is very different, right? Now, we have many more. We have ONDC that was being spoken about in the previous conversation. I think NHA is a little bit more complex when it comes to the next steps. I think the practitioner registries part, we will get there, definitely. The part about the medical standardization that needs to be solved for the record transmission between the healthcare companies and the insurance companies, that is a bit more complex to solve. But will we get to a place of having a good practitioner registry which can be verifiable? I think that is a reality which we will hit very soon.
Sure, makes sense. I think a lot of insurtechs in the room, and I'm sure many of them will pick up, I think, on some of these problems, because I do agree with you that the timing maybe is just about right, especially for early movement in this sort of space right now because of all these data exchanges and so on coming together. With that, Arindam, I'd like to ask you, and maybe the last question for the panel is, how do insurtechs work with an insurer like yourselves? What are the avenues? How should they approach you, or even with other carriers? Because I think insurtechs always feel that there is some bit of barrier in terms of, maybe the two are talking two different languages. And I think the purpose of a report like this and a conference like this is to make sure we start talking to each other in the same language. So would love to hear from you in terms of what you look for in terms of insurtech partners and what's the best way for somebody to engage.
No, I mean, thanks, Anand. I mean, that's, I think, one of the most exciting question for both sides of the table, correct? See, a couple of things, and what you have just now mentioned, and to Vivek's point, pull push, again I am going back to the same stuff, simplicity of the product. I think insurer as a manufacturer are slightly laggard. I mean, InsurTech, or even for that matter, government or regulator is ahead of us. Why I am saying this? There are two excellent examples. I mean, even Jandhan, Aadhaar, I am not. Within insurance ecosystem, very, very strong and kind of a successful this thing. I mean, just a quick question. How many in this room of you are owner of PMJJBY or PMSBY policies? Okay, not that many, and that's an interesting part. Why? In this country, this is a huge success. I would say it's a huge success. Around 40 crore of the population, okay, in a one sweeping move, got covered. You can debate whether the amount of protection is enough or not or whatever. The only reason being, it's very simple. And it's a kind of, and people might say it's a group platform or something or other, but 40 crore in one sweeping move, simplicity of the product, it has that affinity or embeddedness already in there, something 12 or 15 or 21 rupees, it's a kind of an 1 lakh accidental cover, or 442 rupees for a 2 lakh life cover, and it's a pre-underwritten, so all those things, correct? So one good product, good concept, you are, and mind it, in this room, I think not more than lower double digit. So maybe 15, 16 hands raised. So it is getting sold to someone who actually needs it. So the penetration problem, it is getting sold there. What stops us from doing it? Our side and your side, correct? Somewhere down the line, I feel we are getting too caught into the entire ecosystem. The honeypot is in the distribution. Somewhere down the line, the traditional methodology distribution, usme hi thoda sa zyada malai hai. And we are getting too much into that space. We have to solve the problem for the customer, and we will be game for you. So if you are looking for something to co-create, the one as a manufacturer, believe me, at least in our company, and I think most of the company will fall in line, there is a kind of an, as a manufacturer or insurer, in any other FMCG or other good, there will be white label producers, whether I like it or not, correct? So it can be your product manufactured by me, powered by you, sold by you. I will take the servicing responsibility. That is the side we are going to, because you know the customer better. Perfios knows their risk, their understanding and everything much better. So you are here, you can create everything. We are just a kind of an O&E service provider. So that's one side. Second thing, are you really solving the customer problem? Okay. So many a time we are trying to solve distributor problem, manufacturer problem, regulatory problem, but the customer is someone which is getting somewhere down the line slightly down in the order. So that thing, if we can attack, I think we should be able to kind of really address it. So that's one point. Last but not the least, we are trying to experiment, and not only us, I think most of the insurer, health, general, life, everyone. So in case I can talk about ourselves, so we tried creating over the last 1 year, particularly for our captive audience, something like a wellness platform, which is, we believe wellness can happen if I am financially sound, which is through maybe kind of a bank deposit, mutual fund, whatever, investment part of it. If I am really protected from the unknown risk or non-priced kind of a risk, wherein insurance come from. And second, last and most important, I need to be happy, correct? So that's happiness is the wellness ecosystem. You would have seen similar experience happening multiple other places. We can partner with you again. Absolutely, we are not selling insurance there. We are not trying to sell any XYZ branded product over there. We really need an idea. We need some few innovative mind who are ready to experiment. We are ready to lend our platform ecosystem to you to experiment. If it works for all. If it doesn't, we'll move into the next idea. So that's the whole game altogether. And I believe looking forward to some bright ideas from the audience out here, and wish you all the best. I'm sure if not us, somebody else will do it today or tomorrow. So with that, I think back to you.
Thanks Arindam for that open offer. I'm sure many people will follow up with you, and hopefully something great comes out of this. So on that note, I would like to close the panel. Thanks a lot for your participation. And this report, Vivek, could you tell us where it's available, where people can find it?
So I'll say this for sure. You want to answer this one? Or? Okay, so it's available both on the BCG website and on the IIA website. So both places you can download the report, and of course we'll also put it up on LinkedIn for people to start accessing it from there as well. So completely available. Welcome to feedback and brickbats if we've got something off as well. So anything constructive, we'll take it and use it for next year.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone, and congratulations again to BCG and IIA for putting this wonderful report together. Thank you, everyone.